Hi, it's Darren from Little Athletics New South Wales, here to talk about how we can safely and effectively and in a fun way introduce triple jump to young athletes. We're going to talk about some progressive activities that you can use to teach the skills. We'll talk about some rules, some safety tips, some common errors that young athletes make, and also some terminology that will help you. Some of the equipment that you will need to teach triple jump are some different coloured ground markers or cones. You will need a rake and a shovel and a broom if you are eventually going to get the kids to land in the sand pit. Also useful are some ground dots to maybe mark the different phases of the triple jump. Now, in introducing triple jump to kids, I'm assuming that these kids can already perform a basic hop, can leap from one foot to the other, and can perform a 2-foot safe landing in a sand pit. If not, some remedial teaching will be required. Some basic triple jump rules that you need to be aware of. Number 1, the kids must perform a hop, a step, and a jump sequence. If this sequence is not performed, they perform 2 hops and land in the pit, it's a foul jump. Secondly, to receive a measurement, you need to land in the sand pit. If the child lands on the runway, the jump can't be measured. Number 3, it's also worth knowing that the triple jump is measured in its entirety from the start of the hop to where they land in the sand. Some key safety things that you should take into account when teaching triple jump. Number 1, you need to ensure that the runway and the takeoff area are stable and non-slippery, and that the landing pit is safe to land in, that it's well dug over and raked and there's no objects in there that may cause a problem. Also, when it comes to safety, number 2, it's worth ensuring that the kids can actually land in the sand pit. Ideally, you don't want them landing on the runway at the end of their triple jump. Also, when it comes to safety, number 3, we need to make sure that the kids have the minimum skills to do this event. And therefore, we want to ensure a nice progression, starting easy and getting more complex as we go along. A final safety point that I always like to mention is if the kids are having trouble landing in the sand pit, allow them to start their hop from a point that is closer to the pit. Some common terminology that's useful to be aware of when you are teaching triple jump. Firstly, we talk about the takeoff foot. Now, the takeoff foot is the foot from which the child will hop from. It's that foot that hits the takeoff board or the takeoff area. That's the takeoff foot. When it comes to talking about a hop is when you take off and land on the same foot. A step is where you take off from one foot and land on the other. And in fact, it's rather than a step, it's more like a leap or a bound. A jump is where you take off from one foot and ideally land on 2 feet in the sand. Now, triple jump is commonly known as a hop, step, and jump sequence, or a hop, skip, and jump sequence. Now, skip and step, I think better words are bound or leap. But regardless what you use, we need to give the athletes an easier way to remember those things. Hop, step, and jump, whatever you use, is a bit hard to remember. When you triple jump, you take off and then you land on the same foot, the other foot, and then both feet. So you can describe a triple jump to a young athlete as landing on same, other, both. Now, when introducing triple jump, if the kids can already perform a hop and a bound and a jump, I think the place to start is teaching them the correct sequence. Right from the start, when you're teaching this correct sequence, it's also worth introducing the concept of common phases, meaning that the distance and the timing of each of the phases, the hop, the bound, and the jump, are all relatively similar. Now, when first introducing that sequence, I think it's worthwhile doing it away from the pit, maybe on a softer grassed area. Set up a little area where you have markers determining where the athlete is going to land for their hop and their step and their jump. Before we mentioned, the athletes land on the same foot, the other foot, then both feet. Use colours to show that. Put colours on the ground where they are landing next to the same colour another colour, and then both colours. Now, my suggested step one in introducing triple jump is to get the athlete to stand on one leg next to a cone and hop and pause, and then step and pause, and then jump and pause next to those predetermined cones. Step number two in introducing the triple jump is to speed it up a little bit. Get them to do the hop and the bound and the jump without pausing next to the cones. Look for an even rhythm and sound as they are landing. Now, step number three is to introduce a bit of an approach. So get them to do the same skill, but take them one step back from those cones. So you get them to step to that first cone and then perform their basic triple jump sequence, still looking for even phases. For step number four, it's pretty straightforward from this point on. All we are going to do is extend that approach. So maybe from the one-step approach, take them back a few steps back and get them to do a walking approach and then transition into their triple jump sequence. We can then, if they're confident with that, introduce a jogging approach. Now, during this time, if they're making those distances between the cones in a very easy way, you might like to extend the cones out a little bit more, so they have to put that little bit more effort in. Now, the next step in introducing triple jump, once you are confident that the child can consistently perform the sequence correctly, and from a bit of a running or jogging approach, I think it's okay to move them over to the sand pit to get them to land in the sand pit. Now, the closest triple jump board you'll find at most venues is a 5-metre board. That means it is 5 metres back from the edge of the pit. Now, a lot of kids will be able to attempt this. If you think they're going to have problems making the sand, allow them to take off from a bit closer to the pit, whether this be a 4-metre board or a 4.5-metre board. You will need to determine that, but just make sure that they will land in the sand. One thing to note is as the kids get better at triple jump, you may find that that 5-metre board is too close, that they are jamming up their technique so that they don't perform their step landing in the sand. What you do in that sense is start to transition them to a new board. Now, officially in athletics rules, the boards go from 5 metres to 7 metres to 9 metres. To jump from 5 to 7 metres is quite a big distance to do and can be quite confronting to kids. So what you do is edge the board that you are using and you're practicing from further and further out. So from 5 metres, you might teach them then from a 5.5 metre board to a 6 metre board to a 6.5, and then finally to a 7-metre board, just to make sure that they can proficiently land in the sand. Now let's talk about some common faults that you will find with kids when they are learning triple jump. Number one, a lot of kids, rather than do even phases in the triple jump, will try to perform the biggest hop they can, a huge hop. And that means that they will come crashing down from their hop and will find it very difficult to then perform their step phase. Now, if this is happening, go back to those earlier drills, cones at predetermined distances, and get them to feel that rhythm of even phases as they perform their triple jumping. Number two common fault with triple jump and beginners, and it can be related to the big hop, but a lot of kids will perform a very short step phase. It is often the weakest phase in the triple jump. Often a big hop, a short step, then a big jump. As a coach, you want to try and teach them to even the phases out. That often means just going back to those drills where they're jumping to cones at even predetermined distances. And another fault as kids get a little bit better at triple jump is that step that is landing too close to the pit, causing them to shorten their step and shorten the overall distance that they're jumping. Again, like we mentioned, that will mean progressing them to a board that is further back from the pit in a progressive fashion. So there's some ideas to help you introduce triple jump to beginners. Remember, I think it's important to teach that sequence and to teach those even phases, sub-maximally triple jumping away from the sand first and then moving them over to the pit. Hope you've enjoyed that, and I hope you enjoy your triple jump coaching.